Chris, here's the nuance, okay? The war plans or the operational plans for China would involve things like targets and potential assets that would be used, ships, aircraft, whatever it is. It's very possible that they discussed some elements about the possibility of a conflict with China today, but without actually providing the full operational plan. So there may be a little bit of gray area here. Again, we were told by defense officials that one of the topics of discussion today was expected to be China.
So, General, I just got my hands on a letter that was sent to Pete Hegseth from Tammy Duckworth, U.S. Senator, and also, of course, a veteran, and Elizabeth Warren. And they want to know what went on today. They say it remains unclear exactly what information he received, but they say this. Although it may satisfy his curiosity, there is no legitimate national security or other rationale for providing this information to Mr. Musk, who is not a military or national security expert, is not a member of the president's cabinet, and is not even serving as a permanent federal official employee. Although Mr. Musk is ostensibly engaged in an effort to cut wasteful spending, there is no need for him to obtain access to some of our most sensitive secrets to do so. And then they ask point blank, did the Pentagon today provide Mr. Musk with a top secret briefing on U.S. war plans for China? Is that a question that members of the U.S. Senate have a right to have answered?
Look, the bottom line is Musk is no question a brilliant, successful, creative tech leader in the business world. And so his input would be valuable on anything talking about space or missile systems. And I think they ought to welcome his participation. Having said that, he is not a Senate-confirmed officer of our government. His agency, DOGE, was not created by Congress. He has enormous conflicts of interest, both with the U.S. federal government and, needless to say, with China, where half the Tesla production is in Beijing. And so it's not clear to me why he would have a passing briefing that might allow him to decide what technologies are acceptable for future warfighting, which might benefit himself. And why would he have any necessary expertise on this? You know, the fact that you're a genius like McNamara, it turned out to be one of the worst secretaries of defense we ever had. So it's a chaotic, unhappy situation for national security.
There's also questions about whether he would have input on the way money is given to the Pentagon, to the military. He has, of course, been tasked by the president with cutting the federal budget. It's hard to do. We've seen the reversals that have happened. By his own admission, he said that they've made mistakes. DOGE has made mistakes. What would you make of that? What could that mean for the military budget? Who should be looking at that?
Well, look, this is the most gigantic organization on earth. Its purpose is peacekeeping and deterrence. The technologies it deploys take 5 to 15 years to mature. It's a collective leadership responsibility under Article 1 of the Constitution. The Congress plays a vital role.
Communist Party of China leads the PRC, is the most potent and dangerous near-peer adversary this nation has ever confronted.
I openly warned the American people that from my unique vantage point as an official who saw more intelligence than anyone else, I assessed that China was far and away our top national security threat.
So we're going to start by ensuring the institution understands that as far as threats abroad, the CCP is front and center.
I do believe we are in a Cold War with the Chinese Communist Party. They certainly are in one with us.
These were all Trump officials making it crystal clear that in their view, Trump is the top national security priority of the United States right now. Something to keep in mind, given today's stunning reporting in the New York Times that Elon Musk, whose extensive ties to China and comments seem as favorable to Beijing, are well documented, have been set to get a briefing on war plans at the Pentagon today. Let's bring in the ranking member of the House Intelligence Committee, Congressman Jim Himes of Connecticut. Congressman, first, your reaction to the New York Times report.
You're referring to the Musk meeting in the Pentagon?
Musk being briefed on war plans for China at the Pentagon, a briefing that was reportedly called off after the New York Times published its story. And we should say that Donald Trump called, quote, fake story.
Yeah, that's why I asked, because it's not exactly clear what happened. Of course, the defense secretary and the president, everybody denied that there was any briefing on plans. And, you know, what the meeting does, and we'll need to wait to find out what was actually said. And I'll tell you, like everything else that Musk touches, this is such a lost opportunity. You know, if on January 20th, Elon Musk had said, I'm going to truly make the government efficient rather than making it a clown show as he has, he would have started at the Pentagon. Why? Because of the big ticket items that the federal government spends, Medicare, Social Security, and the Pentagon. Those are the three big ticket items. If you're really looking for efficiency, you'd start at the Pentagon. And, you know, if he'd done that deliberately and carefully and not like a clown, he could have actually done a huge service to the American people. Instead, here we have a guy who was also a defense contractor. You know, we don't let the CEO of Northrop Grumman wander the halls of the Pentagon. We have a guy who we have no reason whatsoever to believe that he will show the discipline that is required around handling classified information. And we have a guy who simply breaks things, you know, who fires the people who look after our nuclear weapons and then says, oopsie, will you guys please come back? You don't want to do that when you're talking about our war fighters and their equipment and stuff. So we need to wait to see what was actually said. But I fear that the news is not likely to be good.
Congressman, if you look at his interviews talking about China, he speaks about Taiwan as something to be, I think he used the word, quote, reunited with China. I mean, he also doesn't seem to understand U.S. national security prerogatives.
Yeah, well, that's right. I don't think anybody would say that Elon Musk is an expert on American foreign policy or particularly aware of our history of you know, being strategically ambiguous about Taiwan with the Chinese. You can only imagine what the Chinese are saying when Joe Biden says 3 times that we will intervene to defend Taiwan. And now the Chinese are watching President Trump humiliate and attack Zelensky, cozy up to Putin. And, you know, his co-president, Elon Musk, is saying, yeah, maybe that's okay. I mean, it just talk about making us less secure from a standpoint of not really understanding where our strategic interests lie.
I mean, you worked alongside some of these folks that are in the cabinet that came from Congress. What does it mean to Taiwan to see men like Marco Rubio, who was a hawk on Russia, totally capitulate when Trump decides to crawl under the covers and get in bed with him? How does Taiwan feel when they see men like Rubio do that?
Well, I think what Taiwan and China and Putin and Zelensky all understand now, and I think everybody understands now, is that there's only one person who matters in Washington, and all principles that might have been previously held by somebody like Marco Rubio don't matter anymore. I mean, I sit in the United States Congress, which is now fully flat on its back with the entire Republican conference in the House, with the exception of Thomas Massie. Basically, when Donald Trump says, put on clown shoes and jump, they say, what color shoes, sir, and how high? And that's a huge problem because our founders set up a system in which the Congress was the primary check on the power of the president. So we don't have that anymore. But to get back to your question, look, Taiwan understands, just as every other world leader understands, that the only thing that matters is whatever happens to be going through Donald Trump's brain in this particular moment.
You've used the word clown show a couple times. I wanted to deal with the serious before I dove headfirst into the clown pool. Republicans are afraid of their Republican voters. MAGA, the Republicans have given up republicanism for Trump 2.0. There's no qualms about it. There's no push and pull. If Access Hollywood broke today, there wouldn't be Republicans coming out and disavowing him or separating them. I mean, they're all into everything and anything. What does it mean in terms of the political opportunity Democrats have to talk to the country, including Republican MAGA voters, about Elon Musk's hostile takeover of the government, including bringing the FBI and D.C. police to independent agencies like the Institutes of Peace? How do you talk to the whole country right now about what's happening?
Great question, Nicole. And I'll tell you what, you don't talk about the Institute of Peace. You probably don't even, as much as it breaks my heart to see what Elon Musk did to USAID and to our soft power abroad, you don't talk about that stuff. What you do talk about is what we are about to see become a force perhaps even more powerful than Donald Trump in the Republican voters' mind. We're already seeing it, right? Because in the next 2 weeks, the Republicans are going to have to say precisely how they're going to take roughly $80 billion a year out of Medicaid without creating the absolute havoc and horror that that will do. And by the way, we're seeing this already, right? Look at any one of these Republicans that are still courageous enough to face their constituents, what you're hearing in the town hall. And the reason for that, and we're publicizing this is our mission from now on. We are going to explain to the American people what a 30% cut to Medicaid looks like and who dies because of that. We're going to explain tariffs and the fact that 3 months from now, when you go into the Ford dealership to buy that Ford Bronco and it's now $2,000 more expensive, and the dealer explains to you that that's because of tariffs on Canada and Mexico, and when people start seeing that their meat is not being inspected by the FDA and people are getting salmonella, when Republican voters start experiencing that, you are going to see a political reaction, if I may use the president's phraseology, like you've never seen before.
And it feels like we can do this another day. I'm not going to drop the whole sort of values that America has represented around the world with USAID and starving children and Ukrainian children that have been kidnapped. I know you care about those things.
So, like, people in the military are rightfully aghast at what we're seeing. And I want to be clear. I don't buy into the U.S. hysteria around China. China can and should be criticized when it does bad things, but I'm not, like, a huge xenophobe. So, like, don't mistake this for me buying into all of the American obsession with China being the evil empire. But it is somewhat interesting, isn't it, folks, that Elon, the free speech absolutist, who says he'll say anything anywhere if it's what he believes, and you can say anything on his social media and all of that. And yet Elon, who will criticize Canada, criticize Germany, criticize the United Kingdom, criticize all of Europe, I don't think he's ever criticized China. Maybe I'm wrong, but he certainly doesn't criticize them very often. Criticizes Europe for censorship, but doesn't criticize China. And it's not because of principle. In my opinion, probably yours as well, it's because Elon has a lot of business interests in China. Tesla has a lot of consumer share in China. It's a big market. He wants to grow it. And one of the things that China can do, because even though it's largely a capitalist economy, there is more government intervention, is that they can make it much more difficult for his company to operate more easily than other countries. And so Elon, who now all of a sudden is being invited to secret military meetings, apparently, secret surprise military meetings, is also to hear about potentially issues with China, is the kind of guy who's afraid of criticizing China and doesn't have the sort of experience and, democratic accountability that other people have. When you're talking about top generals, they have to be confirmed by the Senate and have decades of military, careers. Trump, like him or not, was elected by the people. Elon is a nobody afraid of criticizing China and maybe getting secret info about China.